in the heart of America, a symbol of power, success, and the American dream, has turned into a financial nightmare. Once the pride of highways and country roads, luxury pickup trucks are now flooding auction lots and repossession yards across the nation, and the story behind this collapse is more shocking than you can imagine. What was once a $90,000 0-cent status symbol, the ultimate tool for both work and play, is now being sold for a fraction of its original price, some barely fetching $16,000 0 cents. How did we get here? How did the pickup truck, the backbone of American culture, become the face of an unprecedented financial disaster? For years, these trucks were marketed as investments, tools of pride and success. But behind the shiny exteriors and powerful engines, something was brewing, a financial bubble that would soon burst, leaving behind shattered dreams and millions of dollars in losses. In this video, we'll take you behind the scenes of the greatest automotive collapse of our time. We'll uncover how automakers inflated prices, how banks pushed reckless loans on unsuspecting buyers, and how everyday Americans were sold the idea that a truck was more than just a vehicle. It was an asset, a status, a way to secure your future. But here's the truth: they were wrong. The rise and fall of the luxury pickup truck market isn't just about cars. It's a stark warning about the dangers of financial bubbles, reckless lending, and the illusion of endless growth. As repossessions climb and dealerships close their doors, families are left to pick up the pieces, facing crushing debt and realizing the trucks they thought were investments have become their greatest financial burden. In the next few minutes, you'll hear from insiders, car dealers, and people who bought into the dream only to watch it crumble. You'll discover how a market fueled by ambition and greed quickly spiraled into disaster. And most importantly, you'll see how the story of the pickup truck's downfall is more than just about cars. It's about a deeper economic collapse, a collapse that exposed the fragility of a system that promised endless growth and prosperity, only to leave its victims with nothing. So, buckle up, because the story of the pickup truck bubble isn't just about a crash in the car market. It's about the collapse of the American dream itself. Don't miss this shocking exposé of the rise and fall of a symbol of success. A story that's more relevant today than ever before. The American pickup truck has long been a symbol of pride, power, and self-reliance, an emblem of the American working spirit. For decades, these rugged machines were seen not only as vehicles, but as extensions of their owners, tools of trade, companions in adventure, and a badge of status. From the iconic Ford F-150 to the Chevrolet Silverado, the pickup became more than just a car. It was the cornerstone of an entire cultural identity. A pickup wasn't just a practical solution for farmers or construction workers. It was a symbol of success, a reflection of hard-earned prosperity. For many, owning one was a dream come true. Yet, in recent years, that dream has been corrupted and transformed into something far less idyllic. A warning of the perils that come with chasing the illusion of endless growth. But it wasn't just the automakers who were driving the trend. Financial institutions saw the skyrocketing prices of these trucks as an opportunity. Lenders aggressively marketed loans to consumers, offering easy financing for the expensive pickups. Many buyers, seduced by the allure of owning a luxury truck, took on large debts, convinced that the trucks they were purchasing would hold their value. They believed that a $70,000 0-cent truck was an asset, a piece of property that could be sold or traded in down the road for a profit. It seemed like a good deal for everyone involved, and the demand for luxury pickups soared. The idea that a pickup could be both a tool and an investment became ingrained in the American psyche. Buyers, particularly those in suburban and rural areas, began to view these trucks as a way to showcase not only their success, but also their identity. Owning a high-end pickup truck wasn't just about utility. It was about signaling to the world that you had made it. For some, it became a statement of class, a way to show that they had transcended traditional working-class roots and joined the ranks of those who could afford luxury. For others, it was a badge of independence, a way of saying they were still tied to their blue-collar roots, even if their lifestyle had changed. The image of the American pickup truck reached its peak around 2016. Advertising campaigns made the connection clear. Buying a pickup was an act of confidence, a choice to embrace both luxury and rugged individualism, but in the background, the seeds of disaster were being sown. Lenders, eager to profit from the booming market, were offering increasingly risky loan terms. The average consumer, many of whom had never before considered purchasing a truck, was now taking on heavy loans to own a piece of the American dream. Little did they know, the truck they thought of as an investment would soon become their greatest financial burden. As the luxury truck market expanded, it created a bubble. The prices of these vehicles continued to climb, pushing the boundaries of what consumers could afford. Many buyers, taking on more debt than they could handle, were left exposed when the market began to show signs of strain. The pickup truck had become more than a mode of transportation. It had become a financial trap for those who had believed the dream of easy ownership and endless value. In the early 2010s, the automotive industry experienced a seismic shift that would change the perception of pickup trucks forever. What was once seen as a utilitarian work vehicle for farmers, contractors, and outdoor enthusiasts evolved into a symbol of wealth and luxury. As consumer tastes shifted and manufacturers sought new markets, pickup trucks were redefined not just as tools, but as aspirational commodities. The idea that a truck could be both practical and prestigious quickly gained traction, and automakers seized the opportunity to profit from this new wave of demand. The first step in this transformation was the introduction of features previously reserved for high-end sedans. Ford, Chevy, and Ram began producing pickups with leather seats, advanced infotainment systems, premium sound systems, and even the kind of technology you'd expect in luxury vehicles: adaptive cruise control, collision warning, and automatic parking. These trucks were no longer just for hauling heavy loads, they were for making a statement. The market was no longer confined to those in need of work vehicles, but expanded to families, professionals, and urban dwellers who desired the rugged image of a pickup without sacrificing comfort or sophistication. By the mid-2010s, the Ford F-150, GMC Sierra, and Ram 1500 were not just about towing capacity. They were about luxury, convenience, and, most importantly, status. Meanwhile, the marketing machines went into overdrive. Commercials and advertisements began depicting these trucks as symbols of power, freedom, and success. "Built Ford Tough" and "Chevy Strong" became slogans that not only spoke to the reliability of these vehicles, but also to the lifestyle of the people who drove them. These trucks were more than just a mode of transportation. They were a means to elevate the driver's status, a reflection of a life well lived. From weekend warriors heading off-road to city professionals who wanted a taste of the rugged outdoors, these trucks embodied the American spirit of independence and success. But it was not just marketing that fueled this shift. Lenders quickly jumped on the bandwagon as well. With the rising prices of these high-end pickups, banks and financing companies saw an opportunity to increase profits by offering loans with appealing terms. By 2015, it was not uncommon for a consumer to be approved for a loan with little more than a down payment and a basic credit check. Interest rates were low, and many buyers were offered extended payment plans that made it seem possible to own a $70,000 zero-cents truck without ever feeling the full weight of the cost. In fact, some dealerships even promoted these trucks as affordable, with monthly payments as low as $600 0 cents. Buyers, drawn in by these seemingly reasonable terms, felt they could justify the high cost of the vehicles. After all, these trucks were marketed not just as purchases but as investments, assets that would retain their value and perhaps even appreciate over time. As sales soared, automakers continued to innovate. Ford introduced the F-150 Raptor, a high-performance off-road model with an eye-popping price tag. Ram followed with the Rebel, a truck that combined aggressive styling with cutting-edge technology, and Chevy launched the Z71 off-road package for the Silverado, complete with rugged suspension systems and off-road tires. The success of these models was driven not just by their ruggedness, but by their ability to offer luxury features in an otherwise utilitarian vehicle. The shift to high-end pickups continued to gain momentum throughout the decade. In many ways, these trucks became the new status symbol. A man in a tailored suit was no longer the ultimate representation of success in America. Instead, it was the individual in a fully loaded $80,000 0 cents pickup truck that symbolized having made it. The truck became a vehicle not just for work but for life, an all-encompassing tool of utility, wealth, and personal identity. And for a while it seemed like this trend would only grow. The market had embraced the luxury pickup, and automakers were more than willing to continue raising the stakes, creating models with higher price tags, sleeker designs, and more impressive features. Little did anyone know, this surge in luxury pickup sales was building up to an inevitable crash. Banks and lenders, eager to profit from the growing demand for high-end trucks, extended credit to customers who may have otherwise been deemed high risk. At first, the easy loans were enticing. Buyers could drive off the lot with a truck worth $60,000, 0 cents or more, often with nothing more than a minimum down payment and a promise to pay monthly installments. For the consumer, it seemed like a great deal. Interest rates were low, and the idea of owning a high-end pickup truck was within reach. The notion that these trucks were investments, particularly in a market where they held their value well, further encouraged buyers to take on significant debt. Banks justified their lending practices by pointing to the rising demand for luxury pickups and their seemingly unshakable resale value. What no one anticipated, however, was how quickly the tide would turn. As the economy began to slow in 2017, interest rates began to climb. The once approachable monthly payments began to grow, and the affordability that had once made these trucks so appealing became a financial burden. Some of the buyers, particularly those in rural areas who had purchased trucks they couldn't truly afford, started to feel the pressure. The rising cost of living, combined with fluctuating fuel prices and an economy that was less forgiving, created a perfect storm. By 2018, late payments were becoming increasingly common, and loan defaults began to spike across the country. In response to this growing issue, dealerships and lenders doubled down on their aggressive sales tactics. Some dealerships, desperate to meet their sales quotas, even began offering 0% financing for up to 6 years. The idea was simple: lock in a customer for a long-term deal, and the dealership could still make money by adding expensive add-ons, warranties, and service packages. The loans themselves were being stretched out longer than ever before, with some buyers agreeing to 84-month payment terms for vehicles that could cost as much as a home. The problem became more pronounced when the market for used pickups began to flood. Initially, dealerships were able to sell off high-end trucks as people began trading in their older models for new ones. However, the influx of luxury pickups into the used market drove prices down. Buyers who had taken on high-interest loans found themselves underwater, owing more on their trucks than they could sell them for. A 2017 Ford F-150, for example, which had originally sold for $75,000, 0 cents, was now fetching just $45,000, 0 cents at auction. As the prices fell, so did the resale value of the trucks. This shift created a feedback loop. The trucks became harder to sell, meaning consumers couldn't trade in their vehicles without taking a significant loss. As the market continued to deteriorate, the first signs of repossessions began to appear. Banks, which had once eagerly approved loans for high-risk borrowers, were now taking back trucks at an alarming rate. In some cases, entire lots of repossessed vehicles were being sold at auction, often for a fraction of their original price. The surge in repossessions quickly became a telltale sign of the market's collapse. Dealerships that once thrived off luxury truck sales began closing their doors. The financial institution that had once supported the frenzy of luxury pickups was now saddled with bad loans and massive losses. By 2019, some of the largest auto lenders in the country reported record-high defaults in the pickup truck sector, with an estimated 15% of all luxury truck loans falling into delinquency. The crisis didn't just hit the buyers. It affected the entire supply chain, from manufacturers to dealerships. Automakers who had invested heavily in the production of luxury pickups found themselves with an oversupply of vehicles. At one point, there were reports that certain dealerships in rural America were offering deals so aggressive that they were essentially giving away pickups just to keep their businesses afloat. It wasn't uncommon for trucks that had originally sold for $80,000, 0 cents, to be discounted to $40,000, 0 cents, in a desperate attempt to move inventory. Meanwhile, manufacturers like Ford and GM began cutting back on production, worried about the glut of unsold trucks sitting on dealer lots across the country. The human cost of the collapse was felt most acutely by those who had been sold the dream. Many buyers, especially those in rural areas where the pickup truck had long been a staple, were now left with mountains of debt. The perception that a truck could be both a tool and an asset had been shattered. People who had once viewed their vehicles as investments were now trapped, holding on to depreciating assets that they could no longer afford. The dream of owning a luxury truck became a nightmare for those who had overextended themselves financially. As repossessions hit record highs, families across the country found themselves without the vehicles they had worked so hard to obtain. And in some cases, they were left with nothing but debt. As the market began to collapse, the true scale of the financial risks involved became apparent. The pickup truck, once the shining symbol of American success, had become a cautionary tale of what happens when consumers, lenders, and automakers overestimate the value of a product. The myth of the truck as an investment crumbled, and with it the idea that the American dream could be built on luxury vehicles. In the end, what had once been a symbol of power and independence had turned into a cautionary tale about the dangers of excessive debt, speculative markets, and the false belief that everything, especially a pickup truck, could hold its value forever.
The collapse of the luxury pickup market is more than just a cautionary tale about cars and consumer debt. It's a reflection of the broader economic forces that have shaped modern American culture. What began as a symbol of pride and success quickly turned into a devastating financial trap, exposing the flaws in both the automotive industry and the broader financial system. But beyond the wreckage of repossessed trucks and shuttered dealerships, the downfall of the pickup bubble carries important lessons about the fragility of consumer-driven growth and the dangers of unchecked financial optimism. For years, the American pickup truck was more than just a mode of transportation. It was an integral part of the national identity. From rural farms to bustling cities, it symbolized independence, self-reliance, and success. Yet, as the truck's price tag climbed and its status as a luxury item solidified, it became clear that these values were being distorted. Automakers and financial institutions had successfully sold the dream of a pickup truck as both a tool for work and an investment. The promise was simple: buy now, pay later, and watch your truck appreciate in value. But in the end, the reality was far different. The market for these trucks was never as stable as it appeared, and when the financial winds shifted, the consequences were catastrophic. This crash exposed the false promise that the luxury pickup truck market had been built on, that high-end expensive consumer goods could be both symbols of success and sound investments. The illusion of endless growth, of a future where everything appreciated in value, was shattered. It wasn't just the pickup trucks that were affected. This collapse highlighted the unsustainable nature of an economy that relied so heavily on consumer debt and speculative markets. For years, the financial system had encouraged people to take on larger and larger loans, believing that they would always be able to pay them off because their assets, whether it was a truck, a house, or a stock portfolio, would only continue to increase in value. The pickup crash was a stark reminder that the market doesn't always work as planned, and that what seemed like a solid investment could quickly turn into a liability. In many ways, the pickup bubble served as a warning for a larger economic shift. As more consumers were drawn into high-stakes financial commitments, they became increasingly vulnerable to economic downturns. The rise in repossessions, for example, was not just a result of individuals overextending themselves. It was a direct consequence of a larger system that encouraged risk-taking at every level, from the banks offering easy loans to the automakers raising prices on luxury pickups. The entire ecosystem had been built on the assumption that growth would continue unabated. But when the market for these vehicles collapsed, it exposed the unsustainable nature of this growth model, revealing how fragile the entire system was. Looking back, the pickup truck crisis is a powerful reminder of the dangers of unchecked optimism and the false sense of security that comes with believing that assets will always appreciate. It exposed the flaws in a financial system that encouraged people to take on more debt without fully understanding the risks involved. As we move forward, the lessons from this collapse should resonate with both consumers and financial institutions alike. The future is uncertain, and relying on speculative growth, particularly in consumer goods like luxury vehicles, can be a recipe for disaster. The collapse of the pickup truck bubble may have been an isolated event, but its implications reach far beyond the automotive world. It serves as a wake-up call for all of us, reminding us that the pursuit of quick profits and the illusion of endless growth can have devastating consequences.